Hello again, welcome back. Here we are to continue our discussion of React Native, okay? In the last couple of videos, we set up our React Native project, imported our data, and we created a flat list and are displaying our list of components here, right? So in the previous video, I gave you a couple challenges, and the idea here was to take the property name or the feature name and move it to the left, and take the value for that feature and move it to the right of the screen, right? And then the second challenge was to replace the value here with a number of stars, okay? So let's do that, and then it'll give us a chance to explore how Flex works in layout with React Native projects. So Flex is pretty much the tool. Like, we use that with React Native for layout. It's kind of like the premier. There's a couple other things, but it's like, 90% of the time you're going to use Flex, right? So let's give it a try. So the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to realize that right now we have a single text component, right? And it's displaying both the key and the data. So this is the key right here, affectionate with family, and the data is 5, or tendency to vocalize, data is 5, or potential for playfulness is key, and data is 4, okay? Since these are part of this same text object, they're just a string, we can't really separate them. You could try and put a bunch of spaces in there, and that would kind of work, but it's not a good solution because how many spaces will you need, right, to go across? Plus, like, fonts are variable width, it's hard to predict how much extra space is there, right? So the real solution here is that we need to create a container component that has 2 text objects inside it. And then those text objects we can lay out with Flex, okay? And then with Flex we can move things to the left or right, or put them in the center, or do anything, right? Okay, so the next solution here too, or that solution, is going to require that we also make a component, right? I mean, we could do everything inside here, but it would be easier if we had a component, right? So life is easier with components. Might as well make a component. So let's start with that, right? So I'm going to actually close the sidebar here and make a brand new component. And I'm going to call this a feature. So this is a feature of an animal, right? So let's save this as feature.js, okay? And then we'll import React from React, and then we'll import, we'll need some React Native components. So I'm going to import view, text, and style sheet, okay? And now let's make our component. So I'll start with function, say feature, and you can put some props here maybe, and then let's export our component. So I'll say export default feature, okay? And now what is our component gonna export, right? Let's put in the minimum that we need to get this working without any extra features, and then add this component to the rest of the project, and then we'll be able to see the component in action, and then while we work to improve it, we'll be able to spot any errors, right? So let's return our minimum that we're going to need is a view with 2 text objects in it. Yeah, remember, text is uppercase, so I'll put another one here, right? And maybe this one I'll call it the feature name, and this will be the value. So this won't show the actual feature name and the actual value, but it'll just say feature name and value. But this is enough to actually see if our component is working, right? So let's go to item over here, and we'll import our component at the top. So I'll import feature from /feature. And remember, the component here was what we had before. We're going to replace this. So this is in the return statement, and it's where we're mapping the keys, right? We're mapping the keys to these key names, right? And we're turning them into text objects. But what we want to do is use our feature here. So I'm going to change that for feature, right? Actually, let me go back really quick. Remember, the feature is the key, and data bracket feature is the value, okay? So this is what we had before. Actually, maybe let's comment that out even, and then we can put our new feature down here so we can refer to the old one, right? So I'll make this say feature, right? And maybe we want to pass these two values in, key and data bracket key, as props. So let's pass this one in as name, and that will be the key, and value, and this will be the data bracket key, okay? So with this in place, we can see where it says feature name, feature value, and that's working, right? We're creating instances of this. We're just not seeing the name and the value. So let's go back to the feature component and make that work, right? So I've got the props here, and actually we only have two props, so we might as well just deconstruct them inside the parameter right there. So we can just put the curly brackets there and get name and value here like this. And this will now display the name. So I'll put the name here in the first text object, so now I see the names here. And then we can put the value here as value. Okay, so I've got the name followed by the value. Now the default behavior of the text object is that they stack up, right? So what we want to do is we want to arrange them in a row and put one on the left and one on the right. Okay, for that to work, we'll need to declare the container element as display flex. So what I like to do is I like to make, and we'll follow the same pattern we did earlier, is make a styles object here with stylesheet.create. Okay, and then we'll put the curly brackets inside there, and we'll start setting our styles. Now, the properties that we set on this object here are similar to class names and the way that you use class names. So I kind of think about it that way, and then I think about when I set the style property here that I'm just setting a class name, and then I'm defining that class down here, right? So maybe on this first one here, I'll say styles.container, and then on this one, I'll say styles.name, right? And this one can be style. Remember that no S on the first style, right? So the property name or the attribute name is singular, but our variable name here is plural, right? So this one will be styles.value, right? So I'll set these like this, and then inside here I can say, container, that's kind of like my class name, and then we can say name, and this is kind of like another class name, and then I can add a value here, right? So I've got container, name, and value, okay? So how are we going to lay these out? Well, in React Native, everything is laid out with flex. So I'm going to go to the container or the parent element and set display to flex, okay? So that doesn't do anything because the default arrangement is display column in React Native, right? So in CSS, the default display is display row. So let's change this to flex direction of row. There we go. So now here we've got affectionate with family, followed by the value, amount of shedding, followed by the value, easy to groom, followed by the value. So now we just need to move them to the opposite sides of their container. And we can do that with the justify content property. So I'll type in justify content, And then the values here, actually it shows us the default values. It shows us center, flex end, flex start, space around, space between, space evenly. For our case, we want to do space between. So space between takes the leftover space. So, you know, my element takes up, you know, this area here, and the leftover space is over here. It takes this and puts it between, you know, or actually if there was more than two, it would divide it between all the elements, but it basically puts it between them. Okay, so let's save that. And there we go. So now we've got the name on the left and the value on the right. So that's looking pretty good. And you know, you could style these elements too. So maybe for name, let's give it a, you know, font size of font size of 20. Maybe that's too big. Let's do 18, 16. Yeah, I think that looks pretty good there. I like that, right? And then the value could be, you know, something else too. I'll leave that up to you. You decide how you want to style these, but you can continue your styling here, right? Maybe we'll do the same here just for fun. Maybe I'll do font size of 16 and font weight of bold. I don't know, maybe it's too heavy. I think it looks okay. Okay, and maybe, I don't know, you could play with the styles for a while, right? Maybe we want a little space between each of these lines, so we could either set the height of the container or add some padding. Maybe a little bit of padding would be good. So let's do a little bit of padding. Let's do 10 padding. Actually, I got to get rid of that semicolon, right? Maybe that's too much, maybe 5, right? But again, I'll leave this up to you, and you can decide how you want these things to display, okay? But thanks for watching, and that talked about how to use flex in a subcomponent, right? In the next video, maybe we'll tackle how to set up these stars, okay?